This is going to be a fast, quick, simple video to show you how you can use these blocks to multiply polynomials in algebra. Now, before we get to that, we have to lay a little bit of a foundation so this makes sense. So first of all, let's introduce the blocks. We've got units, tens, and 100s. The unit is basically a 1, and then you can start stacking those units, start connecting them together to make larger numbers. There's a 2, there's a 3, there's a 4, and so on. Once you get 10 of these units, that's a 10. Now, if you take 10 of these 10s and put them together, that makes a 100. So we know that's pretty simple. But when we're counting, these are the placeholders. That's how many 1s we have. That's our number of 10s. So if we were to put this out here, this would be what number? Be 100 and 10, 20, 121. So what we're really doing with math is just building rectangles. That's a lopsided rectangle because it's got a big hole in it. But that's all we're doing is figuring out how many hundreds, tens, ones, and then we go up larger than that. But this could be really useful and simple for not only learning how to count, as we showed, but also for adding. So if we say, hey, what's 3 plus 2? Well, we can find the block, and we know that that is always and only going to be 5. Or if we start getting into basic algebra, we could say 3 plus x equals 5. How many is x? Well, it can't be 4. It's not going to be 1. There's a little hole missing. So you know that x can only be 2. So this is where building rectangles starts to make very simple sense in a very simple way with learning simple algebra. So when we're making things a little more complex, like multiplying polynomials, how does that work? What we're going to do is shift the blocks to mean or represent something a little bit different. So we still have our units, okay? There's our 1s, and then we still have 10s and 100s, but instead of 10s and 100s, what we're going to do is call this an x. So what if this is x? Well, if this is x squared, right? So as a really simple example of that, let me show you. I know that makes sense, but just to show you it works with any, it doesn't have to be hundreds, but if we have 3 as an x, and we take 3 3s, we get a nice little square out of that. That could also be x squared if x is equal to 3. So in this case, just for the sake of simplicity, we're going to say that the 10 is an x, and we've built a square out of the 10s, which makes it 100. But it's an x squared. It's not 100, it's an x squared. So here's what we're going to do with that. In the past, when we had a polynomial to multiply, let's say it's x plus 2 times x plus 3. That's a very simple one to start out with, just to show you this example. What we had to do in math, we all remember the formula FOIL, and what that meant is to multiply the first 2 sets, the outer, the inner, and then the last pieces of this problem. And then we could take that all out and put it all together. Now, if we're building with blocks, and I'm not going to go through the FOIL because we've all done that, but if we're building with blocks, basically what we know that this is x, all right, so this is an x, so this is the same as an x, and then if we had x plus 2 over here, and then we had x plus 3 on this side, okay, what we're doing is building a rectangle. So we've got to fill all of these in here. All of these empty spaces need to be filled in. So what we're going to do instead of using units for that is we're going to use tens. So here we've got, it's still x plus 2, but we've got our rectangle filled in. This is still x plus 3, x plus 1, 2, 3, but we have our rectangle filled in. And then we have this little hole that's up here at the top. So how big is the hole? Well, it's a 2 by 3. So I'm just going to cheat and bring in 2 3s here to fill in that little hole. So now we have a nice little rectangle. So how does this work out? Well, how many of these do we have? What is this? It's 1x squared, or basically x squared, plus how many x's do we have? There's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5x. And how many units do we have? 6. So that was a cool way to build that polynomial there, multiplying those two polynomials, you got x squared plus 5x plus 6, and that's what it comes out to. And you don't have to do FOIL. It's cool to know that, but with this, what it does is it takes that abstract formula and turns it to something that's concrete, that you can see, you can feel, and what I like more than anything else, you know with absolute certainty that you have the right answer. This cannot be wrong if you're using blocks to build a rectangle. And that is pretty amazingly cool, and that's how all kids, and even kindergartners, as young as kindergartners, can start to learn basic algebra using these blocks, and they can really understand the concepts. So neat stuff.